Hi, this is Jason Chaffetz, and thanks for joining us. This is a live event. I happen to be here in New York City. I've been doing a lot of Fox News stuff. I'm going to be on with Laura Ingraham on the Ingraham Angle tonight. But I'm excited because yesterday we launched my new book, Power Grab. It's all surrounding me here. And I hope you've had a chance to get this. You can download it, but you can get a signed copy. That's what's cool about this. So sign up to get the signed copy. We're going to sign a bunch of them here tonight. I'll make sure and get through each and every one of them. But I really want you to have a look at this book. I wrote it because I spent 8.5 years in Congress. I had this unique position of being the chairman of the Oversight Committee. And the Democrats, quite frankly, they're working to steal the election. They hated 2016. They want to negate that. But they're doing things behind the scenes that you would never, ever hear about or read about unless you got this book, Power Grab, because they want the power back. Now, Republicans want power. Democrats want power. I get that. But what's different is that the Democrats are changing the rules of the road. They're changing the way they do business within the Congress, and they've done several things there. But they're also doing things outside of Congress that are really skirt on the edge of credibility. And they're doing some things that you just wouldn't believe, and I hope to expose in this book. I took it about a year to put it together. And it's all summarized here, and I hope you enjoy it. And part of what I want to do is answer as many questions as you have along the way and sign these. And so thanks for joining us. I hope you tee it up, and it's a good way to get around the country without having to do events in every corner. But we're going to start here with Nancy, who's in Wilson, North Carolina. I hope Wilson's not right hugging the coast and that you're safe with this hurricane. I have actually daughter, son-in-law, and a grandchild who lives in South Carolina, and everybody's worried about this hurricane. I get that. But Nancy, you're kind enough to submit your question here. It says, will Hillary ever be held accountable for emails, Benghazi, etc.? And first of all, as I sign this book for you, the way the justice in this country is supposed to work, Lady Liberty, the blindfold that's supposed to be on Lady Justice, it's not supposed to peek under it and see if it's a Clinton or not. Unfortunately, I think she has skirted a lot of justice. But, I was talking about with my friend and former colleague, Trey Gowdy, and one of the things that I guess I'm proud about that we can all feel somewhat good about is that I think we exposed her for who she is and how she did things. And the American people passed the ultimate verdict. I know it's maybe not the way you'd like to see it turn out, but I wake up every day and I'm grateful that Donald J. Trump is the president of the United States and not Hillary Clinton. And the fact that we were able to expose that and point out what she was doing and how she was doing it, I think was a big, you can have some satisfaction in that. I am worried with all these investigations and whatnot that we don't see people prosecuted. If a jury finds them not guilty, great. But you have all this prosecutorial decisions that are going out, and they always seem to go in favor of the Democrats. I tell you that, and they don't seem to be prosecuted. All right, let me go to Gonzalo, who's in Arvin, California. I thought I knew California pretty well, but I have no idea where Arvin is. But I do appreciate it. And it's got a little bit longer question, so let me read this. Congratulations again on passing the baton and now publishing this book, Mr. Chaffetz. And call me Jason. After serving 2 terms with the current President Donald J. Trump, do you believe Vice President Mike Pence will run and become the Republican Party nominee? If so, do you have any predictions who might become Mike Pence's vice presidential nominee in 2024? I like the optimism that Donald Trump, as I said in your book here, is going to get reelected. I think he's stronger politically than he's ever been before. I don't see any Democrat that's coming up. I happen to serve with Mike Pence in the Congress. He was, in fact, the conference chairman when I was kind of a rank and file new member. Great man, great integrity, wonderful family. I think he'll be the presumptive front runner going into an election down the road. There are other good people that can serve. It'll be fascinating to see where it goes. But if we want to put our best foot forward, Mike Pence is about as good as it gets. Just a great person, a great man of integrity. So I'm more worried about 2020 and focusing on that. But 2024, I think Mike Pence, the gentleman from Indiana, is as well situated as anybody to take over that helm and go from there. This next one is Sarah from Afton, Missouri. My tie to Missouri that's where my mom was born. She was born in St. Joe, though. St. Joseph, Missouri. And Sarah says, I'm a very old lady in St. Louis. Would love to see you back in D.C. Will you ever go back? Well, Sarah, that's very kind and it's very sweet. And I love that you're on this Facebook Live and what we're doing here. But I got to tell you, there's a saying, friends don't let friends run for Congress. And so if you love me and you care for me, you don't want me to go back into Congress. And I say that with a big smile on my face. I really do believe you get in, serve, and then you get out. So I did 8.5 years. Will I maybe run for something in the future? Yeah, maybe. But I needed a better balance in my life. I left Congress early, and I did so, again, as I signed your book, I did so early because my family life was out of balance. I happen to have a wife and kids that I love and adore, and it was hard to just, I was spending maybe 4 days a month at home, maybe 4 days, the fundraising, all the international travel, the obligations. Great, wonderful time. It opened lots of doors, and I'm here talking to you today because I had those opportunities. But worry about the people that want to serve decades in Washington, D.C. They're the ones that scare me along the way. So, Sarah, thanks for ordering the book. Diane, who's in Hurst, Texas, please sign this book. You never signed the Deep State that I had ordered. Thank you, Diane. We didn't do one of these with my first book. This is my second book. Power Grab's my second book. The Deep State is my first book, and I didn't really do an event like this. So we'll have to figure out another time that I'm in Texas and do it in person. But I'm honored that you would order this. I'm glad you like the Deep State. And I think you'll like this one just as much. So, Polly in Corpus Christi, Texas. Will this ever end? This little live signing will end in a little while, if that's what you're talking about. If it's the disaster that's going on in Washington, D.C., I got to tell you, that's what I'm going to read into the question. Our country has faced big issues over the last couple hundred years, and somehow, some way, we always solve them. We always figure it out. I think the American people figure this out. I think that's why Donald Trump actually became the president of the United States. Remember when he first got in? Nobody thought he was going to win. And yet he was a disruptive president. He was an unconventional person. He wasn't the traditional, person that was coming out of Washington, D.C. with the pedigree. I just love that. It was just kind of fascinating that he was able to achieve this. So anyway, Joe from Harriman, Utah. Now, I live in Alpine, Utah. Harriman's like a hop, skip, and a jump. I wouldn't advocate riding your bike from Alpine to Harriman, but you could. It's that close, but you'd have to cross I-15 there. Joe writes, when will we actually see justice in the DOJ and the FBI? First of all, Joe, thanks for ordering the book. I do appreciate it. I feel like I could come over to your house and do that. But thanks for ordering it. I think we've got our first very serious attorney general that we've seen in the last decade or so. I think Attorney General Barr is actually going to do some serious things with the federal prosecutor, the U.S. Attorney Durham. They've taken the Inspector General reports Mr. Horowitz has done very seriously. There are at least 2 more Inspector General reports. But by all accounts, Mr. Durham, under the direction, leadership, and authority of the Attorney General, is diving deep. The one who's probably on the block the most is Mr. McCabe. Mr. McCabe, the allegation is he has lied to federal prosecutors, or investigators, I should say, on more than one occasion. At least 3 times under oath he was interviewed. There are other times, and if there is justice out there, then I do think that, yeah, somebody like that does stand a very good chance of being prosecuted. We'll see, but that could happen any day. It could happen before we get done signing these books. It could be another 3 to 4 weeks. I don't know, but by all accounts, it is getting pretty close there. So, all right, let's go to Donald. Not the Donald, but another Donald in Benton, Louisiana. What are the chances you get back into the public life and run for Congress or Senate? Right now, they're not very good. I thought about running for governor of Utah. There's a race coming up here in 2020, but I said, no, I'm not going to do that. At some point, like I said, I might do it. But right now, I love the opportunity I have with Fox. Fox News allows me to get out there and talk to lots of people and share opinions. I've got a foxnews.com opinion piece up right now. I get to write these books. I actually really like what Margaret Thatcher said. Margaret Thatcher said, you should first go out and win the argument, then you can go out and win the votes. And to be in the public arena and be able to make the argument to an even bigger audience on almost a daily basis, I love that. So I don't know, maybe I will at some point, but my life will be complete if I'm not a United States Senator too. So, what occurred, if anything, to spark your interest in politics, wrote Audrey in Mokina. I hope I'm pronouncing it properly. Mokina, Illinois. I don't think I've ever been there. Thanks, Audrey. You know what? I was 16 years in the local business community. My mother actually passed away from cancer. She got breast cancer. And in Utah, the Huntsman family was the biggest donor to fight cancer. They started the Huntsman Cancer Institute. And so when I saw that John Huntsman Jr. was maybe going to be running for the governor of Utah, I stepped up and said, you know what? I want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. I think I can help. And thought I'd put up some yard signs and maybe help with something else. Next thing I knew, I joined the campaign. A few weeks after that, I became the campaign chair, campaign manager, and kind of changed my life. So that's really what got me going and what really sparked about it. Doug from Dana Point, and Doug writes, your dad would be so proud. I miss him almost as much as I do. Cheers, Doug from Dana Point. Dana Point in California is about 6 square miles. And my dad passed away a few years ago. And obviously, Doug and my dad know each other there. So, Doug, thanks so much. That's very kind of you, very sweet of you. I miss him. Somebody I would talk to pretty much every day, and now he's gone. And that happened a few years ago. And thanks, Doug. That's very touching, very nice. And thanks for reading the book. I appreciate it, but very kind of you. My dad used to like to say cheers. He'd always say that. He'd like, cheers, when you're done. That was just kind of his way of saying things. All right, Stephen in Houston, Texas, he writes, when you had closed-door conversation with Speaker Pelosi, did you ever feel that she knew the Democrats were pushing to far left, but she had to save face with her party? The reason why I ask is that I try to look at things at a 50,000-foot level and think to myself, at a barbecue with all of her friends and family, there is no way she can push such a far-left agenda, and most of her family would agree or push back. It's really hard, I think, to always try to assume or dive into somebody's personal motivations. Like Nancy Pelosi represents a district in San Francisco. It's about as liberal and far to the left as you can possibly imagine. So, but I think she's a true believer on the far left. Interesting statistic about Nancy Pelosi, who we put on the cover of this book. She has raised more money than anybody in the history of the United States Congress. Think about that for a moment. She has raised hundreds of millions of dollars. And I'm convinced that the reason she continues to be at the top of the food chain in terms of power is her ability to raise money. Would she like this country to lurch ultra far to the left? Yes. Is she savvy enough to know that maybe impeachment and those types of things would boomerang back, and most people would say, hey, you're overreaching there? Yeah, I think she does understand that. But the Democratic Party of today is different than it was 10 years ago. It is so far out to the left. I mean, every week we hear new policy positions that are just crazy. Listen, Bernie Sanders was the outlier 4 years ago. He's not even a member of the Democratic Party. He is a Democratic socialist. That's how he self-describes himself. And yet now the Democratic presidential candidates have all taken those types of positions. I shouldn't say all, but have taken the heart of those positions, whether it's healthcare or, paying off everybody's debt for everything. I mean, you name it. He essentially wants to become a socialist country. And I think Nancy Pelosi, in her heart of hearts, would also want to do that. But I don't know what her motivation is, other than I'm convinced she and the Democrats, they want power. And they're willing to change the rules and to change the way things get done in order to do that and to achieve that. And I think we're going to continue to see more and more of this. How do I prevent the left from ruining this country? Was the next question. Part of it is just being self-aware. People have to know what's going on. If people know what's going on, and I think they're better informed, then they can see through the facade that's put out there. Let's understand that the national media is not going to be doing conservatives or Republicans any favors. I had this conversation, and I brought up his name a couple times, I'm sure, but is Trey Gowdy, one of my colleagues, former colleagues there in the Congress. And we were talking about one of the biggest disappointments, biggest changes, it's just so different than anything I thought, was how the national media dealt with Republicans versus Democrats. And Republicans, they never met an investigation they thought was worthy and should be pursued. With Democrats, they never met an investigation they thought should ever end. They were treated so differently. And again, I credit Trey Gowdy for kind of articulating it that way. But this is the problem. You're not going to get that. So, with Facebook and social media and your ability to kind of go direct and hear directly from the people that are involved and engaged in it, I think that gives you a better perspective. And so that education, that perspective, I think informs people, and then you can make better decisions. And I think it'll motivate people, get people involved and engaged. And that's the hope. All right. Why are the deep staters who have violated federal laws not being prosecuted? There is this common theme, and it doesn't matter whether I'm answering questions on social media or bump into people on the street or go to the supermarket at home, same thing. And I think it's pervasive. I think it's dividing this country. I think it's a huge problem as people cannot see justice in equal application of the law. And where things are clearly violated. I mean, we've kind of had this shift. We used to have people prosecuted for mishandling classified information. That doesn't seem to happen anymore. You look at Hillary Clinton, the people that surrounded Hillary Clinton. You look at James Comey. Nobody's prosecuted for this stuff. And yet, when you look at, well, did you lie to a federal investigator? Yeah, sometimes they would prosecute, sometimes they wouldn't. But if you had proximity to Donald Trump, boy, you did get prosecuted. Now you have Andy McCabe, who evidently lied to federal prosecutors. He said lacked candor, which is another way of saying lied. And then they're scratching their head. Should we prosecute him or not prosecute him? Remember, he was fired, evidently, for this. Fired not by Donald Trump, not by some Republican in Congress like myself or somebody. He was fired by his peers. Recommended for disciplinary action by the Inspector General. Then it goes to the Office of Professional Responsibility. Then it goes to a career person there at the Department of Justice. And Mr. McCabe did something most any other person in the federal government is unable to do, with that is actually get fired. So, this is the issue, and it's not going to go away until people can look at the Department of Justice and look at the FBI. Remember, my I don't know if you know this, but my grandfather was a career FBI agent. And I think he looks at the FBI now, and it's just unrecognizable. Not the rank and file, tens of thousands of FBI agents and support personnel out there, but the highest upper echelon within the FBI. I just don't see that. Next one from Angela. What is your greatest fear for the future of America? Ignorance, not paying attention, but I also really increasingly become fearful of the national debt. You can't just keep ignoring this. When I first ran for Congress, go back to 2008, the debt was like $8 trillion. If you spend $1 million a year, $1 million a day, every day, it would take you almost 3,000 years to get to 1 trillion. 3,000 years equals 1 trillion at $1 million a day. We're $22 trillion in debt. We spend $1 trillion every 90 days. That's how big and pervasive this is. And somehow the Republican Party has lost its way. We used to own the mantle of fiscal discipline. When's the last time you heard about us even trying to balance the budget? It's an embarrassment, and it needs to change. And I think it's wrong. So, all right, they tell me I'm supposed to try to do this. She's looking at me off camera here. I have read maybe 2 or 3 of these. I'm supposed to try to answer these 22 questions in 2 minutes. There's no way I can get through it in 2 minutes, but I'll go as fast as I possibly can. All right, here we go. Where were you born? Los Gatos, California. Who would you want to play? Who would you want to play you in a movie? Golly, I don't know. That's a hard one. I like Pierce Brosnan. We'll say Pierce Brosnan. What was your first job? My first job? I was a gardener in Arizona. We moved to Arizona, and I started picking weeds, and then I realized I'm a white-collar guy. But that was my first one. What is your biggest fear? As I've gotten older, my fears have kind of changed. I guess I'm like, what I get scared about? I get scared that my kids are going to get like in a car accident. It won't be any of their fault. It'll be some like drunk driver just plow them and change their life forever. Usually my fears are about my kids. Who makes you laugh the most? My wife, Julie, usually owns every category. She's very funny. Outside of that, I'd say Trey Gowdy. The guy is genuinely very, very funny. I miss interacting with him on a day-to-day basis. What is the one thing you need to have in your fridge at all times? Water. And pretty much the answer to this one and any other food question is going to be Pringles. So Pringles usually solves all problems. What is your greatest accomplishment? Marrying my wife, Julie. If you met Julie, you'd realize that. And then we have 3 wonderful kids, and now I'm a grandpa. I have a granddaughter, so I'm pretty proud of our little family. That's what I'm most proud of. Who is the most interesting person you met recently? Recently is throwing me for a loop. Who's the most interesting person? I mean, I've gotten to spend some time with Greg Gutfeld. The guy is fascinating. That guy is kind of interesting. But outside the world of Fox, let me think about it. I'm going to come back to that. What is your middle name? I actually don't have a middle name. I just have an initial. So it's Jason E. Chaffetz. What is your biggest pet peeve? I just want people to do what they say they're going to do. And that you can't always do that, but that's kind of a pet peeve with me. And then clinging your fork on your teeth. I don't like that either. What is the last book you read? I'm almost done, but The Pioneers, Mr. McCullough. I think I just love the way he writes. He does. What is your favorite hobby? I like photography. I like wildlife photography. Getting out and trying to find bear, moose, elk, big game. I love doing that. It kind of replaces hunting. You don't need a license. You can go out anytime. What is your guilty pleasure? Let's go back to Pringles. Do you have any hidden talents? I'm really good at eating Pringles. What color is your toothbrush? My current toothbrush is white and blue. As I've gotten older, I've come to realize you're supposed to change your toothbrush. I didn't know that before, by the way, but my wife has taught me many things. You change your toothbrush like every 2 weeks. What is your secret snack? All right, I also like Swedish fish. If you want something a little moisture, I like the Swedish fish. How do you take your coffee? I don't drink coffee, so I like hot chocolate, but I don't do coffee. What is the last movie you saw in the theaters? Oh, that has been a long time. Let's be honest. I do Prime, Netflix. I don't like going to the movies unless there's some big screen, something, but I can't even name one. It's been a long time since I've actually been to the movies. What is the last gift you gave? I gave the woman who was working at the front desk, she was so kind and nice. I gave her one of these books, Power Grab. But what is the last gift you gave? I got to think about that, but I'm embarrassed. I can't even come up with one. What cause is dear to your heart? I want to solve cancer. Both my parents have passed away from cancer. 1,500 people a day die from cancer. Why there isn't an all-out war from every one of us, our federal government right on down, on cancer, I don't understand. It is devastating, and I got to believe that we have the ability to solve it, and I'm as passionate about that as anything. What is number one on your bucket list? I just want to be able to live long enough to see all my kids thrive and their little kids. And on my bucket list, I've been so blessed to be able to do and just about everything I've wanted to do. But wildlife photography, I just want to keep doing that. I love going to Africa and photographing animals. So if I can do that a little bit more. Where do you want to go that you've never been? I tell you what, I challenge you. I have been to most places. I can't really think of another piece on the planet other than Iceland and Greenland. Maybe it's our 51st state. Who knows? But I would love to go up and spend some time in Iceland photographing polar bears. But I've been to a lot of places you don't want to go, like Libya, Afghanistan, Pakistan. But I guess I'd also like to go to the Seychelles and some other places like that. So. All right, that took me way longer than 2 minutes. There's nobody that gets through that in 2 minutes. All right, let's go to the next question. Do you think President Trump will win? Yes, I do. I think Donald Trump is stronger politically than he has ever been. I don't see anybody in the Democratic field who shows the gumption on the... I was telling Sean Hannity this earlier. I was on his radio show, and he asked me about this question, and I said, Sean, just base it on enthusiasm. Just the enthusiasm level. Sorry, didn't say that right. The enthusiasm level. Donald Trump could pretty much go anywhere in this country and probably get 100,000 people to show up. There isn't a person in the Democratic field who could go to any part of the country and they would struggle in most places. Phone banks and organizations. Now that'll change, okay? A year from now, as we get closer, they'll start to get some bigger crowds. But the organic enthusiasm for Donald Trump was pervasive even before Donald Trump became the nominee. It is unbelievable. And I just don't see anybody that can then match that. I also told Sean Hannity that I thought the person that would become the Democratic nominee isn't in the race yet. That's my prediction. I don't think Joe Biden will pull it off. I think he's running out of gas and fast. I think Kamala Harris was taken out fairly quickly by Tulsi Gabbard in about 2 minutes, and her polling numbers have just dropped off. If there was somebody in the current field that could take off, they would. I don't think Elizabeth Warren is that person because I think she and Bernie Sanders are so radically left. They may have this small portion of the country that believes in these socialist type of policies, but if you're going to be a mainstream, engage and get the confidence, if you will, of the American people in mass, I don't see anybody who can do it. I think somebody like a Bloomberg or somebody like that may enter the race. Somebody who's a billionaire who can throw $1 billion at it and maybe give it a go. I don't see anybody else out there, and clock's ticking a little bit. So we'll see where they go and what happens here. You answer political questions all day, so I want to know what's your favorite song at the moment. favorite song at the moment. You know what I watched again? Actually, I saw is The Greatest Showman with Hugh Jackman. I kind of like that. Oh, and my wife, she insisted, and we went, and I really liked it. I went to Hamilton, and so I posted up on social media that I went to Hamilton, and I really kind of liked it and the music. And then some people said, "Oh, we don't like the way he treated Vice President Pence when he visited." Yeah, I get that, but it's an amazing show with a great soundtrack. I like The Greatest Showman at the moment, but I don't know. I listen to a lot of stuff, everything from country to you name it. I listen to a lot of different things, but I get lost in the 80s, so it's not that. If I had to name one band, it would be the Cars, because kind of generationally I like the Cars. What motivates me is the next one. My family motivates me. The opportunities that I'm a ball of energy. I have so much I want to do and get out and engage in. I don't know. I just bounce out of bed and ready to go. So it's hard for me to tell you exactly what it is. But I just kind of love life. I'm excited about it. And I'm glad that you're buying Power Grab because I think you'll like it. We got a lot to share in there. But what is the most important advice that you have ever received? I really like the advice that says, do what you say you're going to do. I try to teach my kids a couple things, and it's the same advice that I got. Do what you say you're going to do, and attitude is everything. If you don't have the right attitude, it's not going to happen. Focus determines reality. I had one boss at work that always used to harp on focus determines reality. And he's so right. Focus determines reality. Do what you say you're going to do, and attitude is everything. Those are about as good as it gets. And then right here at the beginning of the book, you'll see when you get it. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. Remember Stephen Covey, the 7 Basic Habits? And I happen to know the Coveys because they actually lived in Utah. His son, I was once upon a time was a place kicker on the BYU football team, and his son was a quarterback, and we were roommates on the road. So I got to know him really well, which meant I had to read his book. And it's still an amazing seller. He passed away a few years ago, but a great man. And one of the things I think is so important that most people miss in their lessons is seek first to understand, then to be understood. And there's so much truth in that. I'm sometimes guilty of overstepping that line as well, but it is good words to live by. And then let me get one more in here. What has been the most rewarding part of your career? Well, I'd like to say that I didn't make a career of politics. I think you serve in politics. I was always very conscious of, at the beginning, making sure that it was not a career. Those people who are making a career of politics, like young people say to me, how do I get involved in politics? And I say, well, the most important thing you can do is not get involved in politics. And they're scratching their head. I'm like, go out and have some life experiences. Bring something, like I told my old son, I said, you may want to get involved and engaged in politics at some point, but don't do it right now. Go out and have outside experiences and then bring that to the table. I worry about these people who spent their entire career just in politics. They have nothing to add from the outside. And I think that's destructive within Washington, D.C. So I got a lot more books to sign here, but we will get them, each and every one of them, taken care of. But appreciate you hearing us out and joining us for this online event, and I hope you enjoyed it. So I'm Jason Chaffetz, and thanks for purchasing Power Grab. Appreciate it.